Human evolution took forever, like 6 million years. But eventually, the humans we are today emerged from our ape-like ancestors. Hominids, as we were known, evolved in stages. Originally, people assumed that evolution was linear, one stage morphing into another. But discoveries by paleo-anthropologists over the last century have shed incredible light on our prehistoric past. The real breakthrough with evolution came in 1974 with the discovery of Lucy, an Australopithecus, a hominid ancestor, who likely lived around 3 million years ago. Historians have stated no other set of hominid remains found before or after is as renowned as Lucy. This was the first complete hominid ancestor, and it was a female. Lucy was found in fragments in the mountains of Ethiopia by a team of white male researchers who were apparently rocking out to the Beatles song Lucy. Lucy was short in stature for a full-grown female, standing 3.5 feet tall, and her arm-to-leg ratio was much more like an ape than a human. Her skull was quite a bit different from ours as well. With the small cranial capacity, this group of hominids likely could not think and conceptualize the world in the same ways that we do. Her discoverer asserted that her remains were evidence that the human ancestral tree was less linear than the diagrams of evolution usually portray. The human tree was more like a bush with a lot of different branches that occurred at the same time. Neanderthals, for example, lived at the same time as other hominid groups and interbred with them. Decades later, more evidence came to light that confirmed this hypothesis, including the Dakika child, who people refer to as Lucy's baby, although of course they probably lived thousands of years apart. If we got this wrong, what else have historians gotten wrong? If an erroneous family tree falls out of our history, does it make a sound? Welcome to Remedial Herstory, where we ask what happened to the women and put them in. In this series, we tell women's history from era to era from the perspectives of differing and diverse women. Women are half of history. Welcome to Her Story. Human evolution is challenging to reconstruct. We know that slowly, humans evolved to have larger brains and a frontal lobe, allowing us to manage complex ideas and plan for the future. We also began walking upright, which required our human ancestors to develop a big toe, more flared hips to support our abdomen and upper bodies, and the S-curve in our spines, hence all those back problems. This illustrates that there has perhaps been too much discussion of the benefits of how we evolved and not enough attention to the challenges our advantageous traits have produced. For example, the massive human brains that make us such a smart species, despite the existence of flat earthers, which seems to contradict this, would also have made birth impossible. Women developed even wider hips and gave birth 3 months too early in order to be able to birth our big brains from the small female pelvis. This helps to explain colic and babies' desire to be swaddled in that early period of their life. Which development came first? The wider pelvis or the larger brain is difficult to discern. Hopefully it was the pelvis. Ouch! One of the biggest areas for improvement was our knowledge of human migration and its dates. Again, it's women, or rather their likeness, that helps illuminate this history. Only about 1.8 million years ago did humans begin to traverse the globe. Humans gradually made their way into Southwest Asia or the Middle East and Europe. 20,000 years ago, an ice age pushed most of those people into the southern and warmer regions. It's from those peoples that we learn the most about human beings as they recorded it in various cave paintings and in discovered graves. In Eastern Europe, as early as 35,000 years ago, there's evidence of more permanent settlements, which included numerous female sculptures known as Venus figurines, depicting the female body with exaggerated bodily features. We have no idea how these figures were used. Were they worshipped? Were they sex objects? It's hard to know. This was perhaps before gendered constructs, and no, we don't mean anatomically correct robots. One of the ways we know where groups migrated was the presence of women because it made it possible for the species to regenerate and make a mark there. Human migration made it all the way to Australia through the networks of islands in Indonesia as early as 60,000 years ago. In Australia, an elaborate rock painting done by Aboriginal Australians showed a god of creation known as Lightning Man. No, not Usain Bolt, with his smaller wife etched below him with exaggerated breasts and genitalia.
Ew, gross!
Humans made it into the Americas somewhere around 15,000 years ago, and it is believed that this occurred in numerous different migrations over land, ice, and sea. These early Americans were known as Paleo-Indians, who were followed by another group called the Clavis people. The Clavis culture abruptly disappeared 11,000 years ago. The discovery in 2007 of an ancient teenage girl's remains in an underwater cave in Yucatan, Mexico, exemplifies the antiquity of female presence in this continent. Named by archaeologist Naya, her remains are estimated to be 12,000 to 13,000 years old. She had a hard life, full of malnutrition and an early pregnancy. The final thrust of human migration was into the Pacific Ocean and probably only occurred 3,500 years ago. Interestingly, both men and women traveled to these newly discovered Pacific islands, clearly indicating an intention of settling. 95% of human history occurred before history was recorded. These early hunter-gatherer peoples lived mostly in small, deeply personal bands of 25 to 50 people. At some points in the year when food was plentiful, those bands would gather together in even larger groups of hundreds of people. Otherwise, these groups moved frequently to follow food sources and maintained very few possessions. As a result, women also bore fewer surviving children because of the constant movement and limited food supply. They also breastfed their children longer, sometimes up to 5 years, to help space out births, as breastfeeding can sometimes prevent pregnancy. But don't try that at home. Across the world, there was tremendous variation in the cultures that developed. Because of the lack of any formal, lasting bureaucratic structure in most places, there was also less hierarchy in hunter-gatherer culture. Men and women were thus a bit freer than their agricultural descendants and got more free time in their day. Men and women honed a variety of skills and worked altruistically for the good of the group. Roles and tasks were often differentiated by gender. Despite the fairer social structure, this was by no means a golden age for women. Food was often scarce. In Africa and Eurasia, women and children and the elderly likely provided the majority of the sustenance through their gathering. There's evidence that up to 70% of the diet of these early peoples came from plants, while meat accounted for only 30%. There is also zero evidence of the existence of tacos at this time. Can you imagine? So women were basically crushing it or being taken advantage of. Hard to say. One interesting finding in a 1999 anthropological study of modern foraging groups is that grandmothers can actually help improve evolutionary fitness of a tribe, as well as her own longevity, by assuming responsibility for feeding weaned babies and allowing the young mother to produce more offspring. They call this the grandmother hypothesis. There is no evidence that among these early peoples, much of the modern misogyny facing women existed. Although it's hard to know, there's little evidence of rape, domestic abuse, or emphasis on female virginity, staples of almost every society following this era. For example, in the 1700s, when Captain James Cook first encountered the Aboriginal people in Australia, he wrote about their tranquility and egalitarian culture. Just decades later, when other Europeans followed him to Australia, they found a highly toxic masculine culture that resulted in brutal domestic abuse of Indigenous women. Had something changed in those 20 years by the introduction of patriarchal Europe? Or had this always existed and been lost to the record? As the Ice Age came to an end between 16,000 and 10,000 years ago, a natural global warming allowed for diverse plants and animals to flourish and provide a more rich human quality of life, as well as providing the basis for several very successful animated movies. Humans began to settle along the river valleys and began a long transition to agriculture. Many have seen this transition as a positive one. But for women, there were some major consequences. Historian Jared Diamond, in his once controversial article, The Worst Mistake in the History of the Human Race, argued that the invention of agriculture had a horrible impact on human health and led to class differences and the rise of elites, along with sex discrimination. Yep, he said it. Some feminist historians go so far as to claim that in these hunter-gatherer societies, gender relations were reversed. The theory rests its case on our prehistoric ancestors' understanding of cause and effect. The theory goes that women held spiritual status in society as magical creatures that bring about life, because, the theory purports, our ancestors didn't understand the role that men played in creating life. The creation stories that survive and portray female pagan goddesses in all their sexualized glory may be evidence of this. But this theory is pretty dated, and the evidence is not widely accepted. Historians, including female historians, doubt this revision of history. In the following section, we will explore this academic debate, more deeply understand the challenges of prehistory, and also to see how the biases of our more egalitarian time can impact our reading of historical events. By the end of this era, so much remained in question. How reliable are oral traditions recording centuries or even millennia after they were first told as evidence of prehistoric culture? Isn't that just a thousands-of-year-old game of telephone? Would humans roam the earth forever? How would agriculture impact gender dynamics in the centuries to come? Thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper into these questions and form your own conclusions, go to our website, remedialherstory.com, where you can find free, ready-made lesson plans, primary documents, recommended films and readings, and more.